Here on Today to focus on an issue that's seizing even government at this stage, with that meeting happening in Pretoria headed by President Ramaphosa and his cabinet around the energy crisis. A short while ago, we heard former President Thabo Mbeki pointing to a lack of strong leadership as the main reason behind the energy crisis. The country is losing billions of rands daily because of the rolling blackouts. In fact, some experts are estimating that we're losing 10 billion rand a day in terms of economic impact. There are also growing calls for the leadership at Eskom to account. But how do we solve these devastating power cuts? To help us understand what's going on and unpack this, I'm joined by Hilton Trollip, independent consultant in energy, research fellow at the University of Cape Town, as well as Professor Mark Swilling, Professor of Sustainable Development at the University of Stellenbosch. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome to Today. Thank you very much for your time. Do you agree, Prof? Let me start with you, with what President Thabo Mbeki has just said in UNISA. We carried it live just now. He was speaking to a group of students at the Thabo Mbeki African Leadership Institute's biannual dialogue. And he says one of the challenges going backwards, it's the issue of there's a lack of strong leadership as the main reason for what's going on in our energy crisis today. Do you agree?
Well, I think a lack of strong leadership is the cause of many problems across the board, but I think it's a bit simplistic when it comes to the energy crisis. I do think if you want to really go back a number of years, back to 2015, when Marcelo Coco and Brian Molefe refused to sign the power purchase agreements for renewables, that would have resulted in 5 gigawatts of new generation capacity, which would have eliminated 95% of current load shedding. Well, yes, at that stage, President Zuma was the president, and there was a leadership that was committed to looting and state capture, and that was one of the reasons why they never signed those power purchase agreements.
Yeah, and former President Thabo Mbeki also mentioning the fact that at the particular time when the contracts were laid out to build Medupi and Kusile, instead of having a consolidated contract, it was broken into many contracts, apparently to benefit BE, and he thinks that's where there could have been a part of a problem, especially with Medupi Kusile as well. They were supposed to be helping us there. Hilton, in your research, what are you finding, Hilton? Let me bring you in here, Hilton Trollip. What are you finding in terms of what could be lying at the cause of what's going on?
Thanks very much for having me. I agree with Professor Swilling on that the kind of governance that was going on from 2010 onwards, on a number of levels. As he said, it's oversimplistic to identify just one thing, what's caused this problem. But I think we need to focus on how to solve this problem and what is going on at the moment. And I agree with the past president about strong leadership, but I'd go a step further, or maybe a step backwards. I'd say we just need the leadership that we have to meet their legally required duties, firstly, to solve this problem, and I can elaborate on that. Yeah. And secondly, we also need to stop this blaming people and trying to shift the blame at the political level solely onto Eskom. Yes, Eskom has a lot to account for, but moving forward, and at the moment, we have to decide which institutions have to be involved according to our law. Is our law adequate? I believe it is. And what do we have to do to use those institutions and that law and the resources that we have to solve this problem? Okay, so the blame game can go round and round, but and I have proposals.
Okay, we'll talk about that. Yeah, we'll talk about the way forward. I mean, you're quite right, Hilton. One of the intentions here this afternoon, quickly, with the time we have, is to look at what possibly can be done, especially today, because the president and his cabinet are meeting in Pretoria, trying to really resolve this issue. We are joined now as well by Happy Khamuble. He's the head of climate change Environment and Energy at Business Unity South Africa. Happy, welcome. I started asking Hilton Trollip and Professor Mark Swilling whether or not they have an idea what could be lying as a cause of the problems we're having today. If you can just begin there very briefly, because just a short while ago, former President Thabo Mbeki telling students at UNISA that one of the problems lies in a lack of strong leadership. What are your views, Happy? We can't hear you. Are you muted? You might be muted. Just double check, Happy. Are you there, Happy? Yeah. Can you try and speak again quickly? Yes, we can hear you now. We can hear you now. Good.
All right. So I think one of the main issues that are there is that at least from the historical perspective, look, government should have made certain decisions and it didn't. Government should have done certain things that didn't happen. But now we're in a stage where we've got a plan. I don't think we need new plans. We need new commitments. We've got a plan, which is the integrated resource plan. And then we've got a crisis management response strategy that we've already developed, at least what the president has announced from the 25th of July. So the main thing that we need to do is to just implement the stuff that we've got. Because if we keep on doing what we generally do, at least as South Africa, is create more expectations, make more promises, and give more commitments, we're not going to get anywhere, because we're going to be stuck in the same situation where next time around we have to do more and more and more, alleviating of that sense of urgency. But the basic fact here is that we just need to get on with what we understand are the material interventions.
Yeah, okay, the past is behind us. I mean, I hear you. And the blame game is not going to help anybody, as Hilton is saying. I hear that. I just wanted to get a sense from you as we begin this discussion, what could be the underlying causes. Now, you say, Happy, we've got an integrated resource plan, but is it being implemented the way it should be? Is it a workable plan or not? Why are we still stuck? Because the challenges of Eskom were identified way back in 1997 by this government in a government gazette, when it said in the next 10 years, by the year 2007, if we don't do certain things, we're going to be in trouble. And bang on the money, in December of 2007, we experienced our first bout of load shedding in the country. Prof, what do you think? I mean, is this integrated resource plan the plan that will assist us now? Do we need something different?
And then even the minister responsible for energy policy has admitted that the integrated resource plan is out of date. And there is a process now to update it. Nevertheless, it is absolutely clear what is needed now, which is to bring large quantities of renewable energy generation onto the grid as fast as possible. We face 2 more years of load shedding while these renewable energy generators are getting built. The president made the right statement in July that sets out the framework, that unlocks a lot of energy, and there is the crisis committee that is involved in coordination. We just now need to make sure that the projects locked up in bid window 5, which cannot reach financial close, are unlocked. And that might mean take some extraordinary measures because the prices are too low.
Extraordinary measures. Hilton, you said earlier you've got ideas, you've got some proposals of how you think we can move forward.
Yes, and these starts at an analytical level. I think we have to stop calling this the Eskom crisis. We have to call it the South African electricity supply crisis. And we have to differentiate 2 problems that we need to solve, not with blaming what the problems are. The one problem is we have 80 Eskom big generator sets in the coal-fired power stations that are unreliable, unpredictable, and unlikely, I'm almost sure, to be returned to the level of reliability that can get to the end of load shedding. Eskom, so step number 1, Eskom must be supported and helped and empowered to get those generators back online and to perform maintenance on them. But we need to recognize that that will not get us out of the woods. So Eskom is not allowed to build a power station on its own. So this is the second part of the proposal. Our law is very clear that A power station starts when the DMRE minister, currently Mr. Gwedimantashe, decides through a determination whether Eskom must build power stations, whether IPPs must build power stations, or private people can build them under exemption. So those are three routes, and we need to exploit all of those routes, include the third one also where the municipality can build stations. Only the energy minister can unlock the regulatory and planning processes to get those stations built. That's where it starts. And until the energy minister and his department gets those three routes flowing, all we will be doing is the Eskom's kit is going to be deteriorating, and it's going to get worse and worse. So we must differentiate. This isn't an Eskom crisis. This is also the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy crisis.
Yeah, and hopefully Mr. Mantashe is explaining himself in the cabinet meeting there. We are not there. We'll find out what will the outcome be. But the reason, I guess, just to explain, I'm not justifying it, but the reason we describe it sometimes as an Eskom crisis is because they are the only people in the country who make electricity and distribute it. They've got the monopoly. But you're quite right. It is a national energy crisis. From a business perspective, Happy, let me bring you here from BUSA. Your engagements with the Department of Energy, from what Hilton has just said, are you impressing upon the minister, Gwedimantashe, that he needs to open up this space? You've gone silent. You've gone mute again. Sorry, you've gone mute again. Happy. I don't know. Earlier you pressed your microphone on your neck there. We can't hear you. Sorry, Happy. We can't hear you. If you can hear me, you need to do something with your microphone. Yeah. Sorry, Happy, we can't hear you. Professor Swilling, I mean, do you agree with Hilton that Mr. Gwedimantashe has got the power here to unleash and open up space for us?
I absolutely and totally agree. Eskom is doing a fantastic job under extremely difficult conditions to keep the system from collapsing, and they can't be blamed for this crisis. So we do need the minister responsible for energy to act decisively to unlock those three streams that Hilton is talking about. But we also need to acknowledge that in the last couple of months, he actually has started to do the right things. He should have started doing that back in 2019. If he had done what he's doing now, then we wouldn't have the current crisis. So we just need to keep the momentum. But in particular, we must focus on the projects that are shovel-ready, that were approved in terms of bid window 5, that are still not getting out of the starting blocks. We need that. If I was in the cabinet today, I would simply focus on that and nothing else.
How long would it take for those kind of projects to come on stream from an energy perspective? How long does it take? I mean, I'm told it can take up to 10 years, for example, to build a power station. But these new IPPs, how long does it take? I see you're shaking your head, Hilton. How long? Less than 10 years, Hilton?
So, yes, if you want to build a new coal-fired power station, it's 10 years. A nuclear power station, 15 years if you're lucky. But what Professor Swilling was saying is we've got to get wind and solar PV, utility scale and other, onto the grid ASAP. And from when you start building those things, it can be even a year that you have them going. The bigger ones, 18 months they're going. So 18 months from today, we can be piling new capacity onto the grid, but we have to, the best time to start is now, and we must get over this planning and promises, etc., etc. There are financiers and project developers lined up. They're ready to go. The bulldozers are warmed up.
That's a very interesting way of putting it. Happy, are you back with us? Can we hear you?
Hope so.
Fantastic. I've got you. Now you've had the views shared that once the Department of Energy can open up, I mean, 18 months to 2 years, we could have more capacity onto the Eskom grid. Business Unity South Africa, your members, I'm sure they are one of those who are in the queue, according to what Hilton. People are waiting there eagerly. The policy framework or the government part is the one that is blocking progress.
Yeah, correct. I mean, as I was trying to say earlier, is that we've got the legislative amendments that are on the way. That's one thing for sure that which is quite key. We've had the electricity regulation amendment that just passed NEDLAC. It's supposed to go to Parliament, and that will make sure that there's basically a variety of means in which people can actually get power and to produce it. It will take care of the legacy contracts, but also will enable people to wheel and trade electricity at a much faster rate and a faster pace, allowing for the energy availability factor of Eskom to increase as well. But then secondly, we've got the Schedule 2 amendment, which basically removes the cap on the 100 megawatts program between wheeling buyer, wheeling seller, and embedded in generation component within our electricity supply industry. So we've got the changes that are necessary, and we just need them to be passed by legislation through the legislature. And then, as Hilton has indicated, the bulldozers are ready. But secondly to this, I think, which is pretty important, is that we need to manage our expectations as a country, because these are going to take some time. They're going to take, at least as you indicated, 18 to 2 years. And 18 months to 2 years. And that is a period of time where we should be getting ourselves ready for a new kind of electricity.
And in that period, and Happy, sorry to cut in there, and in that period, I want your views, gentlemen. What happens? Because currently only Eskom is supplying us. Some municipalities like Cape Town, for example, are already getting energy supply from some IPPs, and they are able to reduce the impact of load shedding. If it's stage 4, they get a lower stage. And then Johannesburg, yesterday, Michael Son, the MMC for infrastructure in Johannesburg, telling us at eNCA that Joburg is now fast-tracking its move towards as well, relying less and less on Eskom. But the reality is, for the bulk of us, the majority of South Africans, we still get our power from Eskom. I just want your views. What should be happening in the interim? Hilton, your thoughts?
So there's three things. Firstly, average citizens and businesses can play a role, although in energy efficiency and load shifting, we can use less energy. Although there's a big problem, because I've seen a response now is when Eskom asks people to save power, they say they won't because they're such bad. So that's one area, but it's difficult. The other one is smaller systems can be put on the roofs of houses, shopping centers, etc., and that can go ahead much faster. We need to unlock that. There's gigawatts of power there. But there's another important issue. We need government to create certainty in a project of pipelines, so that to say we're going to be buying this power for the next 10 years, 1 gigawatt, 2 gigawatts, 3 gigawatts a year, so that the South African renewable energy equipment manufacturing industry can set up to supply this power, because a lot of this is about the economy, jobs, poverty. And if we have this stop, start, go program when we don't know what's going on, conflict between the ministry and Eskom, etc., business won't invest in this equipment manufacturing. And that's where the real hundreds of thousands of potential jobs are. So we can do that now. And it's important in this program to also look a bit more broadly. It's not just about energy supply now. It's about the whole industry, industrial policy, etc.
Hopefully a voice that represents you is in that meeting room in the cabinet. I would like to bring you in, Prof. Swilling, but your device has rotated. You are sideways. Please try and sort that out. And it looks like you are on the road driving. Please do take... there you are. I hope you can... It means that you can hear me. Your view, in terms of what can be done now, because the bulk of us are still relying on Eskom.
Well, I think the harsh reality is that we face a load shedding for the next 2 years, at least.
The next 2 years? Another 2 years?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
No matter what the president does now, he cannot stop load shedding immediately. There's a delay in getting the renewable energy generators onto the grid. That's going to take at least 2 years. Only when that happens can Eskom then take its old power stations or some of the poorly performing power stations off the grid to fully rehabilitate them and bring them back online. It can't do that properly now because we don't have the renewable energy generation capacity that should be there but isn't because of the delay. So we are facing 2 years. So during this time, the best thing that households and businesses can do is get their own systems. And we also... There are proposals, for example, how financial institutions who have bonded. Households can create a facility that would allow people to buy solar panels, backup batteries, etc. And this is what we're going to be. This is the reality. We need to bite the bullet and face it. That no matter what happens in the cabinet today, you can't end load shedding tomorrow.
It's going to be a costly exercise for many households. Are the prices coming down? Do you know, Happy? I mean, I interviewed an energy expert a few months ago who was saying that generally prices of these alternative means of generating powers for households, including your solar panels and inverters and all these kinds of fancy things, the prices are beginning to come down. I mean, if for the next 2 years, many people are going to have to be powering themselves up, literally, it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yes, it is going to cost a lot of money, but that's money well spent, if we can put it like that. The first thing is the prices are going down on average, but if we do not have the local industry and if we don't have the components and the parts in South Africa, the demand is going to obviously outstrip the supply that's available, and that's going to push prices up. So there is a general and clear understanding of logics of economics in that sense. But the prices have come down from what they used to be, and the availability of the different technologies that households, even commerce and industry can use has actually increased. You can, for example, you can only also just use batteries just to secure your supply when you regenerate it from Eskom supply, or you can put on some form of energy generation technology included with the battery. So there are various options that people can take. There are various options that companies can take, and many people are exploring those. But what I want to pick on is that the energy efficiency component is quite important, because even from our own estimates and even government's own estimates, is about 600 megawatts can be saved just from being able to be energy efficient. Even in previous demand-side management programs, we've seen how well energy efficiency plays a role in making sure that the grid is not as constrained as it tends to be nowadays.
Thanks, yeah, we've got about 3 minutes left to go. I'm going to try and give you gentlemen just under a minute each. The final question, so to speak, and any final thoughts you have very quickly. Should Eskom, after today's meeting, decide for predictability, so we know, just choose one stage, like say, it's going to be stage 2, guys, every day for the next 2 years, instead of giving us stage 5 and then stage 6 and then stage fright, whatever that is. So could that be a solution? I'm going to wait for you, the energy expert, the Hilton, to say. And also, just from a business perspective, economic-wise, our economy will not grow until there is power. No power, no jobs. Can I start with you, Prof, as you wrap?
Yeah, it costs us about 2 billion rand a day at level 4, at stage 4. So it's very damaging. I don't think you can expect Eskom to provide certainty. The unpredictability, the uncertainty is here to stay, because they simply don't know which power station is going to trip tomorrow. It's very unstable. It's a very unstable system. They can take stuff out for planned maintenance, but then the next day there can be a power station that unexpectedly trips and forces us into level 3, level 4, level 5. And that's the reality we face until we get new generation capacity on the grid.
Okay. Thanks, Prof, for those final thoughts. Hilton, your final thoughts?
I'll just add some detail to that. What people need to realize is it's a fact that as we sit here, 30 very large, complicated machines have broken down. It's like massive trucks have been driving along the road. They've broken down. They're on the side of the road. As they manage to get each one back on, another one goes. And I agree with Professor Swilling. It's impossible to predict what's going to happen. We'll be lucky if it doesn't get worse. And to expect Eskom to fix all those trucks, forget it. Highly unlikely. So we're going to have to accept the load shedding and focus on keeping those trucks going and putting the responsibility on the energy ministry to get that new generation onto the grid.
Thank you very much. Happy, your parting comments?
I'd say let's implement the IRP. Let's make sure that we implement that crisis plan from the 25th of July. We don't need new commitments. Let's just do what we've committed to. And if necessary, let's put the necessary resources to the maintenance plans that Eskom has put forward, including the required amounts.
And each and every one of us who consume electricity can try and do something for themselves in terms of generating your own little power, or do something instead of relying on this grid. 2 years seems like a long time, but if you think about the fact that it's 15 years ago almost since load shedding started in December 2007 to today, I mean, another 2 years, hopefully, to 24 months or so of extra power is worth the wait. Thank you very much, Happy Khamuble from Business Unity South Africa, and Hilton Trollip, independent consultant in energy research fellow, the Global Risk Governance Program, University of Cape Town, and Professor Mark Swilling from Stellenbosch University there. Thank you. You've been on the road, you've been going on and off, but thank you for staying with us and participating here on today, sharing some ideas. Well,